Hey there. So I was exploring the back rooms today and I caught a little bit of the asbestos, so my eyes are a little irritated, but otherwise we're good. The movie was a solid 8 out of 10. I was very much a fan. I enjoyed it. Let's continue. By the way, a little bit of context. I don't normally do movie reviews. Um, I am a videographer. Videography is what this channel is about, but my friends really liked my theory in the group chat, so and they said that I should make a video about it, so I'm making a video. So again, finish watching the back rooms. This isn't a full. There's gonna be spoilers in this video, but I wanted to explain what my take on the meaning, the symbolism of the back rooms are. So if you haven't watched the movie, go watch it now. And I'm glad you're back. Okay, basic summary. My theory on the back rooms is that it's supposed to represent someone's inability to change, being stuck in a memory in a sort of way. Like, most films, they use the antagonist of a person, place, thing, the environment, creature as a way to symbolize the human condition or just a metaphor for something that impacts people. And both of our characters, the way that I interpreted this, because I've heard fans of the film, or I've heard people say that they didn't understand the movie. And to be honest, I felt like the ending was a little lackluster for me too. But again, 8 out of 10. I really liked this movie. Um, I thought critically, it was pretty good. I just realized if you didn't watch the movie, let me give you some context. We have a few characters in this film. We mainly focus on two. We have Clark, who is the guy who in the film, I'll put him on screen, and he was wanting to be an architect. He now works at a dying furniture store. The other character we mostly follow around is Dr. Mary Klein, who is a therapist, psychologist. I'm not really sure I know the difference, but she is Clark's therapist. And they have conflict in the film. They talk back to one another. And she actually just wants to help him. And then there's some other characters in the film. So we have an employee from Async that we don't really dive into. And then we have two of his employees at the store. One of them is an assistant manager, I guess, but two of his employees come with him as well. So in the beginning of the film, we see him working. Actually, in the very beginning of the film, we have some like 80s, 90s lost footage of an async employee, and we get shown that there's actual creatures in the back rooms. I know people debated that, but we're shown that hey, the back rooms exist. There's a worker there. There's a monster in there. We go back to the real world. Clark is working at this furniture store. He's marketing the store as as a pirate. And then we see him in therapy. He's talking to Dr. Mary Klein, and it's very clear that he's upset with how his relationship ended. He got kicked out of his own house that he would pay for. And yeah, he's unhappy. He's still stuck in the past. He hasn't moved on. And I think that's very important. That's where my theory comes in. I think the whole movie is supposed to be about the fact that you don't move on. You're stuck in a memory. You're stuck in the past. And you're not willing to change things. And I don't know if that's the right interpretation. This is like this video. The whole reason I'm making this video is my theory on it. I'm going to continue with a couple more plot beats. So he finds the back rooms. He goes and explores in there. He gets an employees. They go in there. He leaves a voicemail to Dr. Mary Klein. He tells her about the back room. She doesn't believe him. He's gone. She goes, finds him. He's clearly been changed by the back rooms. Their situation changes. So like they're changing because of their experience in there. By the way, before this, he figures out there's something in there. He runs. He's investigating. He's mapped out the whole area. And then they have another scene where, by the way, in the first therapy session in the beginning of the film, they role play. In the second/third act, the very beginning of the third act film, they have the role play session again. We know who the monster is, and then we have some sort of resolution. So that's what you need to know. Spoilers: the monster, the still life, the copy, the whatever you want to call it, is a weird version of Pirate Clark. So we have Clark, our main guy. We have his character that he markets the store in, Pirate Clark. Pirate Clark is actually like the big monster. Like that's the thing that's haunting. Now I don't know. There's multiple monsters. There's multiple copies of people that are just wrong. But the actual monster itself is Pirate Clark. I'm gonna get that out of the way. There you go. Spoiler. It's on screen. If this video gets taken down, it's whatever. I think the movie is trying to show us that people don't move on. They're stuck in the past. I think the therapy sessions is what alludes me to this, because in the therapy session in the beginning of the film, we find out that Clark, again, he's unhappy with how his relationship turned out. He and his wife broke up or got divorced or whatever. She kicked him out of his own house that he paid for and everything. She was studying for law. It doesn't matter. What matters is that they argued. And throughout the film, we see Clark drinking a lot. So he is an alcoholic. and they argued. In the second version of that role-playing scene at the end of the film, there are copies in the dining room, copies of people. Like the Backrooms remember places and it remembers things. It also remembers people. Like sometimes there's copies of people, but they're wrong. There's this thing that they keep saying in the film where, like, imagine someone who's never seen a dog and you describe a dog to them and you ask them to try or describe it back. They would get it wrong. Maybe things would be right, but the little things would be wrong. And every single one of those people, the redheaded woman in the red dress, that was his wife, right? That was supposed to be a representation of Barbara. The dude sitting in the chair that they cut into, that's supposed to be I think that's the electric guy from the beginning of the film. I need to rewatch this movie, but I think that was him. The guy in the wheelchair with the lamp, no idea who he was. Maybe an Easter egg, I'm not sure. But in the beginning of the film, you have that scene where he says what he wished he said, or he lashes out. And then in the second time, again, goriness, he cuts the red hair off of copy Barbara and puts it on Dr. Mary Klein as he's holding her hostage to reenact the scene and say what he wants to say. There's a really big pivot there, because I don't think he was just a drunk. Copy Barbara didn't react to Clark. She was still and whatever in that scene. But copy Barbara reacted to Pirate Clark, to copy Pirate Clark. And she was wailing and trying to run, and I don't know if she actually ran through a wall or she was stuck in a wall. I was kind of confused because it was kind of dark. I think that was supposed to represent that he was an abusive drunk. So he's stuck in the past. He was probably an abusive drunk, and he doesn't want to move on. In the Backrooms, it allows you to not have to, like, I'm sorry, I'm not explaining it well. In that same scene, the dining room scene, I think it's such a pivotal scene, he mentions that these copies of these characters, they don't feel pain. He just puts a knife in one, he cuts the hair off Barbara, and he cuts out a chunk of them that apparently you can eat it, like he results to a form of cannibalism. He says that the copies don't feel pain, and those copies are of people in his real life. But then what contradicts that is there's a scene where Pirate Clark is chasing Dr. Mary Klein, and she was able to hurt him with the concrete piece that she always carries around, which, again, I was going to get to that. Dr. Mary Klein is also stuck in the past. She's like still thinking about the fact that her mother had psychological issues. She hasn't moved on from that. Like the handprint that she put in the concrete in the beginning of the film that she now carries around her everywhere, she can't move on. She can't move on, and we know that it's affected her. And you can argue if it's hereditary or just psychologically. She, in the beginning of the film, she's also unstable. She was popping pills at one of her book signing events. So obviously both our characters haven't fully resolved the trauma of the past. I think that's what this whole movie is supposed to represent. It's not confronting your trauma and moving on. Because, okay, again, back to what I was saying. Dr. Mary Klein was able to run away from the monster to a degree. The monster fell in an async trap, and then she took the concrete and beat it, and blood came out and was able to knock it out. So do the copies in the Backrooms feel pain, or do they not? You can't have both. They either do feel pain or they don't. And I think to another layer to this analogy is I think the Backrooms, what it does is that it's supposed to be like symbolism for, I wouldn't say nihilism, but like numbness. I think what Clark doesn't realize is that him not wanting to change, because that's like the big thing, he accepts that he doesn't want to change. He's trying to change, but he accepts he doesn't want to. I think what he doesn't realize is that his contentness with life, his not wanting to make things better, his whining all the time, hurts other people. And in the Backrooms, he doesn't even realize that his actions, because everything that he complains about in the movie is his fault, to be honest. Literally, his decisions, his actions hurt other people. Him taking his employees to the Backrooms in the the beginning of the second act, that kills his employees. Everything he's done has hurt others, and it's at no one's fault other than his own. It's not even the Backrooms' fault. It's literally his fault. He set those things in motion, and I think that's really important too, because like when Dr. Mary Klein goes into the Backrooms, and again, I apologize if you watch the movie. I feel like what I'm saying makes sense. If you haven't, I'm explaining it poorly. When Dr. Mary Klein goes in the Backrooms and she's trying to find Clark, and she runs into the entity, it's not the entity that attacks Dr. Mary Klein. It's Clark who subdues her via a rare naked choke, and then holds her hostage in the dining room, right? Clark is working with the entity. Like when she asks, "What is that?" and they don't see it, he says, "Oh, that's just me." Like, bro, he's literally working with his entity to hurt other people. Like, him and his inner demons are literally on the same page. But when he has that argument with Barbara, the role playing session, and he says that I don't think I want to change, and she tells him that he doesn't have to. He doesn't need to leave the back room. He doesn't need to go back to the real world. He can stay here and not change. His inability to change, his unwanting to be better, to make things better for him, it literally, not like, I mean, I guess figuratively, but it literally kills him. It is once he accepts the truth about his character, Pirate Clark picks him up, bites him out of his neck, and kills him. It's his inability to be better that literally is his own downfall. And Dr. Mary Klein, she's a little bit of a hypocrite because even though she's a therapist and she became one because of her mother, I think she wanted to understand the psyche of someone better. She herself doesn't live up. I don't think in the common, like, the public eye would live up to the standards of someone who's healthy to be a therapist. She's also has her own demons. By the way, I want to note that I was so confused at the beginning of the film because her mother was not okay. Like, you can tell that her mother was trapping her in, and she put her hand in the concrete and left handprints. They both did, and then she went back and got the concrete piece. I honestly thought watching the film that her backstory was going to be that her or her mother found one of those portals in their childhood home, went crazy, came out, and stayed in the real world. That's not where the movie went. I think her mother was just actually crazy, like just regular crazy, no outside influence. So I was not expecting that. Ending the movie, Dr. Mary Klein gets fined by Async, and they basically tell her that things are kaput, bro. You gotta tell us what you know, but I can't guarantee you're gonna live. So whatever. So I'm not sure. I feel like the ending was cut short. I think I heard a rumor. I think I scrolled maybe past the rumor saying that the movie, like, there was more and they cut it out. I don't know. I think the movie was actually fine as it was. It's not something I'm super content with, but it makes sense. But then we see that there's a copy of her in the Backrooms. Actually, I think it's just supposed to mean that she herself hasn't moved on, and so now she's in there. She's stuck in a place where it's walls and everything. Which leads me to the next thing I kind of want to explain. Because I feel, okay, my theory, I think it makes sense. I think it does. Sorry, I'm also filming this at 1 a.m. The Backrooms is a series of rooms. It looks like a warehouse. It looks like a suburban home. But the walls don't make sense. Things are in order, but they're not. And if we're going based on my theory of it's supposed to represent someone who hasn't moved on, I think it's kind of like, have you ever had something bad happen to you, or like a series of bad things? You've conflict with a person or a traumatizing event, and there's like multiple events that happen. Have you ever tried to explain it to someone, the events that happened and how you felt and the way you responded, and then sometimes you have to go back and add more details, and to you it makes 100% sense, the trauma that happened to you, but to someone who has no connection to the series of events, it sounds like jargon because you're explaining something that happened to you. You're explaining the different ways to look at it, the logical, the emotional, the psychological. So to someone else, they can't really put together everything you're saying because there's so much coming at them. I kind of felt like that's what the Backrooms was to me. It's like me explaining to someone everything that happened, but because they're looking at it from one point in time where I'm kind of looking at it as everything, it's almost like it doesn't make sense to them. So it's like imagine someone who's never seen a dog and you describe a dog and you ask them to explain it. It's just harder. Like, you get the big ideas, but you don't get all the details. I'm honestly having a hard time understanding if the movie could have been about anything else. Again, I watched the original King Pixel videos. I didn't watch all of them. And then I have not been big in tune with everything that people have been making about, like, the Kanye West stuff, the monsters and everything, the levels. But I think in a neat story where we actually are invested because the characters are invested, I think this was a pretty good film. And I think it makes sense. Because if you're stuck in a scenario and you keep replaying it in your head and you don't change or grow as a character, you grow as a person, it makes sense to you, but it doesn't make sense to anyone else. And I think that's the whole thing about trauma. The way that your brain and your body respond to trauma doesn't really make sense to other people, but it makes sense to you. And I think that was like a whole point of the movie, because in the beginning, like Dr. Mary Klein, her book, she talks about like your brain puts walls up and you have habits, and it doesn't make sense. I mean, it doesn't make complete sense, but you fall into a routine of decisions and behaviors, and it makes sense to you. It protects you. Doesn't make sense to other people. That was pretty long, but that's what I think the movie is. I think it's supposed to be a commentary on how people respond to trauma and not making changes. We see in the film that Clark has become content with life. He um he doesn't want to change. He doesn't want to be better, and that's what kills him. Dr. Mary Klein, we don't know if she's dead. Her not moving on either, even if she's like very aware of her own mentality, her not moving on still gets her trapped. Also, I have like one extra theory, and this might just be one of those things where like it's an Easter egg. The Christmas tree red room scene where Copy Barbara attacks Clark. That's supposed to be that is that supposed to be an Easter egg? I'm not sure, because to me it was like, what if Clark and Barbara had a fight over a Christmas, and so that's what he gets. Because from the way that I understand it, I think the Backrooms, as much as it's its own space, I think it's also supposed to copy things from the person who enters it. Like it makes memories based on the one who enters it, and it creates a maze for them. I don't know if that's the truth, but that's my theory. I don't know if it's an Easter egg. The bathrooms thing, I know that's for sure. Like the pools and everything, that was for sure an Easter egg. Yeah, sorry, I don't have much else to say. That's my idea. Maybe I'll make a simpler version of this.